What's going on, my soul family? Welcome back to another episode of the Awake with Jake show. On today's episode, I'm going to be dropping in and sharing with you the differences between ego and intuition. I'm also going to share with you 8 ways to connect deeper to your intuition. Now, before I get into today's episode, I want to share with you that we are just a couple weeks away from our next Heal virtual workshop. HEAL stands for Harmonize, Embody, Activate, Love. If you would like to register for this event, go to healvirtual.co to sign up and secure your seat today. As we talk about ego and intuition, you may notice a certain sensation happen within your body, and this could be the ego getting triggered, or this could also be it connecting to the wisdom of your intuition. Now, we all have an ego and we all have an intuition, okay? When it comes to understanding the ego, if we can understand it, we can transcend it. And that's really what we're doing here in this earthly plane of consciousness, is we are learning to transcend our ego. It's not about demonizing the ego. The ego is a part of the body. The ego really thinks it is a somebody. But the more we awaken, the more we transcend our ego, the more we come into what I call soul consciousness. Now, soul consciousness lives in a place of oneness with all things, with all beings. It is the one energy. The same energy that created me, created you, and created everyone else, even as much as your ego wants to divide and separate based on your race, your political standpoint, your sports teams you like. This is all ego stuff, okay? I want to share with you the difference quickly between ego and intuition. Your ego is kind of like a loud mind chatter. It's very of the mind, which is really has a lot to do with the logic of the masculine mind, because a lot of our world runs predominantly on this ego, wounded masculine type energy. But these people, these beings, have forgotten the essence of our true nature, which is love. Now, your intuition is felt more within your body, generally within your gut area, okay? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever got an intuitive feeling, you've probably heard someone say, or you might have said it yourself, oh, I felt that right in my gut. It was a gut feeling. That normally is connecting to your intuition, which is coming from pure source energy. That is the difference between ego and intuition. Intuition is directly connected to divinity, and ego is separate from divinity. Let me say this again so this really lands. Your ego thinks it's separate from God, Source, Buddha, Allah, whatever you believe in, and your intuition is directly linked to that. It's felt directly through your body, okay? Ego normally feels anxious. It's kind of like a anxious feeling where you're chattering a lot in your mind. It's normally very fear-based, okay? Your intuition feels like truth, and it normally is like an instant response of, wow, this feels like my inner knowing, my deep inner truth. Your ego is very reactive. It's kind of like a barking dog that is always kind of nipping and snipping at people and lashing out. Where your soul or your intuition feels like it's more able to process and kind of just less reactive. And it sits with the feeling versus lashing out to be right, to be heard, to be validated, to have attention. The ego is all about me, where the intuition and the soul is all about we and all about unity consciousness. You see, it takes going beyond just yourself, the illusion of just your separate self, which is disconnected from everything in this universe, to be able to connect to your divine intuition. Your ego needs to have control. How many times have you felt this in your life? And maybe you're going through it right now, needing to have control over another situation, over another person. And your ego really gets all spastic when it doesn't have control of the outer world, where your intuition surrenders into the flow, into the natural flow of the universe. And it trusts this natural flow. But the ego will try to force things. It will try to make everything work the way it wants it to. Because remember, the ego is trying to preserve you, your mortal body, to keep you alive, to survive, which, okay, has benefits at a human level, but it can also cause a lot of problems because it's running on old programs and doesn't allow you to connect to the divinity within you. So this is why I say to people, transcend your ego. We don't demonize the ego. We don't blame the ego for all of our wrongdoings and shortcomings. We transcend the ego and we start to connect to our intuition. Another thing with the ego is when you're operating from ego consciousness, it feels heavy in your body. Normally an anxiety-like feeling. You feel very heavy. Your chest starts to close and you're going into survival, fight or flight mode, where intuition is an energizing feeling and you feel very light. So think lightness, intuition versus ego, heaviness. The next thing is your ego feels very small and limited, scarce thinking. It's kind of like the thought of, well, I can't do a video because people will judge me. Or I can't go ask that girl to go on a date with me because what if I get rejected? So every time you're coming from a place of smallness and you're shrinking, you're in your ego, okay? So right now in your life, what areas are you allowing your ego to keep you small? Because your intuition feels abundant. Your intuition feels and knows abundance. The truth of the universe is abundance. And anytime you're coming from a place of pointing the finger at other people and blaming people from your problems, that's your ego, or you're coming from a place of scarcity, like you're running out of something, that's your ego, trying to survive, fighting for survival. But your intuition knows that this soul that lives within your body, which is your body is just a vehicle, a spacesuit, that is eternal consciousness. So how could the soul be limited? The soul is limitless. The soul is eternal bliss. So the more you transcend the small ego, your small ego, our small ego, our collective small ego. Think about how much of the world right now is running on ego, pride. Why do we go to war? The need to be right. That's why we go to war. Because we want to have power over someone else. But is that the way that your creator made you? Was to dominate and control and force your way through life? No, that's your ego keeping you small, keeping you cut off from love. That is the answer to everything in this universe that people are missing. Love is the answer. And that is directly aligned with your intuition. Your ego is all about yourself. If you haven't noticed this by now, it's kind of like we could call the lower self, where your intuition would be considered, we could call it your higher self. Although they both have divinity within them, you feel like you are lighter when you're operating from a place of your intuition. And you can feel that truth resonating with the cells of your being because it's vibrating at a frequency of consciousness, of love. Not the mind chatter, not all of the anxiety that you're creating in your body based on your attachment, your emotional attachment. That's what the ego does. Anytime the ego starts to feel anything that doesn't feel aligned with what it wants in that moment, it's very grabby. It tries to create control. And it tries to take over the situation because it has an emotional attachment and it creates these ego constructs and these models of the world of how it thinks it's supposed to be. Now, if you and I were to meet and you're not operating from my ego model of how I think you should be in this life, then I may have a really big problem with you. And I may not like you because of the ego models and the ego constructs that I have built. Instead of the intuition and the soul would just say, okay, they're just being who they're being. Because the soul has infinite wisdom. And your intuition is all intertwined with all of that. Anytime you feel cut off from other beings, from love, you've gone into anger, you've gone into sadness, which is very important for our healing journey because we have to go into these things. We have to learn how to grieve and feel our pain and feel our hurt in order to realize that that isn't our truth at all. So the ego also feels very forceful, dominant, controlling of other people, where the intuition feels like flow. It's like a river flowing. Just feels like pure source alignment. And you'll know when you're in your intuition because you're not even thinking about being in your intuition. You're feeling your way through. It's like, imagine if you walked into a dark room right now. You wouldn't think about where to walk, or maybe you would, or would you just feel your way through the room? You would navigate your way through the room based on your feelings, based on what you were feeling in your body and what to be truth to you in this moment. And that's what we can learn to do in life, is come from a place of feeling our way through, as well as using our logic, the masculine logic, but the feminine is the intuitive parts of ourselves. So yes, we all have both of these energetic poles within ourselves, the feminine and the masculine, the yin and the yang. And when we learn to connect to the feminine aspects, the feminine intuition, we can start to really have a beautiful navigation through life, and we can feel things. Like, for example, in relationships, the reason why so many people stay in relationships that they're not fulfilled in is because they're thinking too much about it. You see, if you slow down and you start to feel your way in through it, you can know truly, is this relationship serving me? Or has it run its course? And am I ready to release this relationship? And the instant feeling that you get will be your truth. It is so accurate. This energy does not lie. And an analogy that I could give you around the ego is kind of like a small, bratty child. And I know I've been this small, bratty child at points in my life because I wasn't getting the love and the attention that I really needed. That's kind of what our ego is like crying out for love, crying out to be seen, right? Where your intuition is kind of like the wise older sibling that's been down the road a few times, right? It's been through some stuff. That person, that being has been through some stuff. So it knows because it's had to know. It's had to learn how to know. Now, I remember I started developing my intuition very young because my older sister, Jocelyn, who was 4 years older than me, got addicted to heroin at 17 years old. And I really started feeling her energy and learning how to read her energy. I could tell when she was high on crack cocaine because I was feeling into her energy. And also, same thing with my dad. I could feel when he was about to get really upset and try to hurt me. So maybe you've developed an intuition because of some type of trauma. But the thing is, we don't want to use our trauma to keep us guarded and cut off from the world. We want to open ourselves back up to the vibration of love. And that's what this human experience is really about. One of the things it's really about is letting go of the emotional attachments to who we think we are. We're all trying to become a somebody in this life, right? But the more you let that go, what could hurt you? If you weren't attached to this physical body, what would hurt you? People's rejection wouldn't hurt you. Whether people validated you or not wouldn't hurt you. Whether people praised you or not wouldn't hurt you. It doesn't matter. Because your emotional attachment to what you think you are, which is the ego, and who you think you are, more or less your identity of self, is why people suffer in this life. So the more you go beyond that, you transcend that, and you can integrate all of the cosmic energy with the spiritual energy within the human form, everything begins to change. Because remember, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. Your soul took on a birth into this human form, okay? And in this human form came with an ego. It's almost like you bought a new car, which is your body, your spacesuit, flying around through space. And with that car came a manual of how to run the car, okay? But here's the thing. That manual may be outdated. And a lot of those things may not be serving you in the way you're operating your current life. So if you're still running on old trauma, if you're still running on old belief systems, and whatever that may be, we all have belief systems, and get familiar with yours, because the more you know your blind spots, the more you can transcend them, and the more you can enjoy this human experience and feel settled into your body. It's not to deny your body. It's not to deny the vehicle. It's to enjoy the vehicle, to allow your soul to enjoy this vehicle as it lives in this vehicle, to feel safe within this vehicle. Now, I want to transition at this point into 8 ways that we can connect deeper to our intuition. Now, before I even get into this, I want to also share with you a message that's coming through right now is the way in which we are going to truly connect deeper to our intuition is getting to know who we really are, not who we've been told to be. Who are you? You're not 37-year-old Diane that lives in Long Island, New York, okay? That's just who you think you are. That's your ego identity. Whatever social construct you think you are is not who you really are. What you are is a divine soul connected to the oneness of everything. And this is something that you have to discover within yourself, because just hearing me say those words to you may not be your truth in this moment. You have to find your own truth. You have to discover your truth within yourself. The first thing, allow yourself to feel. Remember, the feminine energy has been largely repressed within many people due to social conditioning around the feminine energy and how the feminine energy is weak. Remember, we all have both of these energy fields within us. Yin and yang energies operating both within us at the same time. Your feminine energy is most aligned with your intuition, where your masculine energy is more aligned with the logic. So a lot of people live in their minds because they are not connected to their body. Your mind pulled you out of your body because of the trauma and the pain that you went through, actually to try to protect you from that pain and trauma. But what happened was you disconnected yourself from your body and now you can't feel anymore. So when you get into a relationship, you may be thinking, I can't feel anything. I feel numb. I can't feel love. Okay, but here's the thing. You have to do some healing work around that to be able to go back into your body, to go into the painful experience where you lodge the pain within your body. And your body really does have an emotional code to it. A lot of times when we feel pain in our body, it's old trauma that got stuck somewhere within our body. So the healing work that we do takes feeling. So we use our feelings to navigate through our pain, through our trauma, through our hurt, through our sadness, and we allow ourselves to grieve and surrender into the healing. Now, I know this is extremely uncomfortable. I know that being vulnerable is not something that a lot of people want to do in this world. And believe me, when I first heard the word vulnerability, I'm like, what? No, absolutely not. I will not allow myself to cry. Crying is weakness. And that's the thing is, if you're not willing to feel your feelings, and not from a place of victimizing yourself, of poor me, this happened to me, with the actual intention to release, then you're going to continue down the same patterns in your life. Second thing, quiet down inside and listen. So the more that you practice slowing down, becoming more still within, the more you can start to connect to your intuition. So one way in which we can do this is through meditation. So practicing having a daily sitting meditation where you're allowing yourself to feel the feelings and scanning through your body, breathing through your body to release any stored trauma that has been lodged within your body. Now, when you first sit down to meditate, your mind is most likely going to be racing. Your ego is going to be racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, thinking of all the planning, organizing, structuring, building, succeeding, who you are, who you're not, who's kissing who. Like, it's like this constant chatter. And your mind is going 1,000,000,000 miles an hour, comparing, judging, contrasting, planning. Breathe. Slow down. What is the rush? What are you rushing to? Death? We're all going to get there at some point, okay? So there's no rush. And here's the thing too, is if you couple, or when you couple, this sitting meditation with some form of movement exercise, this flow, which could be considered more of the feminine energy, now you're actually creating harmony between your inner masculine and inner feminine energies. Third thing, pay attention to your energy. One thing that we can do often throughout the day is just scan your body, and you can do it right now with me. Just close your eyes and breathe slowly, deepening. And just scan your body for any tightness or tension in your body. Paying attention to your energy also means when you go around a certain person and you feel really anxious, That's your intuition that might be trying to speak to you in that moment. Or if you leave a person and you feel very light, maybe you are in vibrational alignment with that person. So paying attention to how you feel energetically, or it could be a business deal that you're embarking upon, right? Or it could be a job you're going to, a relationship you're going to. Pay attention to the energy that you feel throughout your day, throughout the things that you are engaging with, that you are choosing to intertwine your energy with. Because every time you intertwine energy with something, you are basically contracting your energy field with that other person's energy field in that moment. So by choosing to stay in a relationship with somebody that you don't feel aligned with, remember that is what you are doing. You're intertwining your energy fields, and that could be keeping you at a lower vibration than you want to be at. And ultimately, you know in this moment, but you have to honor your intuition that you feel around that. Number 4, challenge your ego through self-awareness and reflection. So a lot of times the ego will keep us very unconscious. It will keep us asleep. It will keep us operating from kind of 3D trauma, we could call it, from earthly body trauma, because it's still operating in fight or flight. So through challenging our ego, through self-reflection and awareness, we can start to see the ego games, the ego traps. So for example, if you had a conversation with somebody and maybe the conversation didn't go the way you wanted to, or ended up in an argument or a fight, as you walk away from that, say to yourself, was I in my ego or was I in my truth? Because if you're in your truth, which, it can change over time, but most of our truth is coming from a place of love and pure consciousness. And even though our ego might think differently about that, we are coming from a place of truth, which would be grounded and centered in love, where the ego is very reactive because it's wanting to be heard. People that are really in their ego oftentimes only talk. They don't ever ask questions because they don't care about other beings. They're just trying to figure out how to survive within themselves, and they're constantly in this survival mode. So slowing down and getting curious about other people, just asking other people questions, is a way that we can kind of set the ego aside and just listen to the beauty of the universe. Number 5, learn who you truly are at a soul level. Now, I just briefly talked a little bit about this. Learning who I am has been one of the things that has drastically changed my life, because I was who I was thinking I was supposed to be in this life. I was who made other people happy for their own egos, right? And I did things pretty much my entire life to keep people around me happy, to people please and get praise from them. But I wasn't aligned with my truth. I wasn't aligned with my soul, okay? Because remember, the soul doesn't have attachments to the ego stuff. That's the difference right there, is because your soul is already loved and validated. Your soul is complete, where your ego feels incomplete. And if you're operating from a place of ego, then you will be operating from a place of people pleasing, and you'll be doing things and saying things and going places that you don't want to go to. And you're operating from a place of out of alignment. That's basically what it comes down to. You're operating from a place that's not in your true alignment because you're afraid that other people might not like you. You're afraid that you just don't feel safe in your body. You're afraid of not having their love and support anymore in your life. So when you're in a place of soul, you're in a place of abundance. You're in a place of your divine inner knowing. Number 6, process how you feel versus reacting. Now, if you remember me saying the ego is kind of like a barking dog that is always lashing out at people, where your intuition is willing to process and sit with the feelings and let it kind of go through. Because oftentimes the first instinctual response that we have, the emotional response that we have, is not necessarily our truth, because it could be triggering old trauma in your system. So don't just lash out and be super reactive. Allow yourself to sit with it. Sit with your hurt sometimes. Sit with your pain. Sit with your discomfort. And you'll notice that this will pass, and you'll come to a much more clear understanding and inner truth, because that's really what it's about. It's about having clarity around your inner truth and within your inner truth. Number 7, practice listening and trusting your intuition. So yes, this actually takes some practice to develop a relationship with your intuition. The intuition that you feel, if you just keep ignoring it, keep avoiding it, how could you ever get better at it? It's like if you had a bicycle, but you never rode it, practice riding the bicycle, practice listening to your intuition, and eventually it grows stronger and stronger and stronger. And the last thing that I have, number 8, which is probably the most important on this list, is create harmony between your inner feminine and your inner masculine. Now, both the yin and the yang energetic poles that live within your body, that exist within your body, creating back to one source energy. That is what the yin and the yang are doing. It's manifesting as one, but it's coming together as two energetic poles in your body. The masculine, which lives on the right side of your body, the feminine, which lives on the left side of your body, the feeling side of your body, which you feel all throughout your body. As we have harmony and we learn to feel safe with our feminine energy, we can start to connect more to our intuition. But if we don't feel safe in our body, then our masculine energy will put up shields, because that's our inner protector, and it will protect us from the outside world hurting us because we don't feel safe. The more you let down your shields using your discernment and using your intuition, you start to really connect to the divinity within all things. As you heal any trauma that you have within your body, you can get back into the feminine flow, which is the feeling of things. And also, the thing about feminine energy that's so beautiful, it's your receptive energy. So if you're struggling to receive, then you're blocking love from coming in your life. You're blocking happiness, money, all other kinds of things, because you're actually cutting off your manifestation energy. Your feminine energy is like a magnetic energy that attracts things to you, where your masculine energy creates the structure and the support and the leadership behind to make the decisions to get things done and be clear on what you want in life. So when you have harmony between your yin and your yang energies, everything in your life starts to change, because the outer starts to change as well. But everything first begins at a vibrational level, and it also begins within yourself. So the more you heal and harmonize within yourself, the more the outer will reflect that back to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. I hope that it brought you a ton of value. If it did, feel free to take a screenshot of it and share it to your Instagram story. And once again, our next Heal virtual workshop is only a couple weeks away, so make sure you grab that seat soon. Go to healvirtual.co today to sign up. As always, stay open, stay loving, and stay connected to that beautiful source within you.